Hey, what's up guys, Josh here, and today we're going to be talking about the Ananda Bluetooth from Hifiman. So, this is one of those niche products that for most of us, it's going to be not really all that interesting, but for very few of you, it's going to be absolutely perfect. And another thing, which is weird, this might just be the best sounding Bluetooth headphone in the world. And I say that because there's not a lot of really high-end Bluetooth headphones out there. So I'm gonna be talking about the functionality, the build quality, some different things that are actually a little bit different from the standard Ananda, which I've already reviewed. So you should, I'll put a link to my review in the description down below, as well as a link to purchase this if you are interested. And even though I've already reviewed the standard Ananda, there's actually a surprising amount to talk about on this. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, a real quick disclaimer, Hifiman did send this review unit out, but they didn't with the Ananda. That was actually a friend of the show, Jerry. And I'll talk a little bit about sound here, but it's not gonna be the main focus of this review. So if you want an in-depth look into the sound quality, I would definitely recommend checking out that review. And again, links in the description down below. So in terms of build quality, there's actually a few things that have been changed. One is going to be the headband. They routed this cable from the right ear cup to the left ear cup. They routed it through the headband, so the headband is actually stiffer and thicker. And that stiffness and that thickness actually leads to a headband that actually feels a little bit more flat heavy and doesn't quite kind of curve with the top of your head as well as the standard Ananda one does. So it can get a little bit hot spotty on the top of your head. Not the worst thing in the world because this is still a fairly lightweight headphone, but it's definitely more noticeable than the standard Ananda was. The headband here is just about the same except for the yokes, and they actually changed the yokes to be in my opinion, a lot better than they were, because they will actually articulate now, whereas before it was just kind of a standard metal fork that couldn't articulate at all. Now it articulates a little bit. Not a whole lot, but enough to, I think, fit more heads more comfortably, which is a good sign. Now this Ananda right here is brand new, and the original Ananda that I reviewed was used. So I'm not sure about the pad quality. These seem a little bit stiffer and a little bit thicker, but I can't verify that, and that might just be because of use. One noticeable thing about the pads though, is that the Anandas was really easily removable, and these are not. In fact, they're so difficult to remove that I haven't removed them out of fear that I'm going to either break something or snap a clip off or ruin whatever glue is holding them on. So the pads are not as easily replaced on this. Maybe they are, I'm just not willing to put a $1,000 headphone through a torture test, just trying to get the pads off for no real reason. And weight, it's just slightly heavier than the standard Ananda. Surprisingly not that much heavier, a little bit, but not a whole lot. It's still not what I would consider to be a heavy headphone. Like, it's not anywhere near the kind of the LCD line in terms of heaviness. Now, one last thing about the build, and then we'll get to the functionality, is that it actually doesn't open that wide. This headband actually seems to be a restricting factor for how far it stretches out. Like, once it reaches there, which is not that much wider than my head, it doesn't stretch any further. So if you got a really, really wide head, you may not even be able to get this on, which is a little bit of a weird thing. And that kind of introduces me to some of the functionality and weirdness and unfortunate oversights of this Bluetooth headphone. So regarding the ports and the buttons on the bottom, you have a USB-C, great, getting into that standard life, appreciate that for charging. You have a 3.5mm input, but more on that in a second. You have a power on / reset / pairing button that also is used for play pause, but no skipping forward or backwards, which is weird. And then you have a button that is dedicated just to give you a battery output, and the light for the battery is actually on that play pause / power / pairing button. Now, I'm not going to go over the functionality of like how many presses you need to press for this function or that function. You can read all that in the manual if you get it. Otherwise, it's not really that important, other than just the basic functionality of it. Now, this headphone also comes with this little bitty microphone, and it's actually really adorable. But it's the beginning of sort of the weird things about this headphone. So it plugs in just like that in that 3.5mm input, and kind of goes like this, and I have a hat on, I know, just chill. And one of the weirdest things about this is that this 3.5mm input is only usable for the microphone or a microphone. So you can't actually pass an audio signal into this from either your phone or your amplifier or whatever you have, except for the USB-C. The USB-C can be plugged into a USB output on your computer and played via that USB-C playback, if you have that on your computer or on your phone. So this was admittedly a little bit of a surprise. I mean, USB-C is great, it's becoming the standard, but still, I think anybody buying a $1,000, audiophile grade headphone is probably gonna have an amp and DAC that probably doesn't use USB-C. Now, I'm almost positive the reason for this is because all the signal has to pass through the DAC and use the onboard amplifier here, and it doesn't have a way to work around that. I'm sure that's the reason for it. But I still think it's weird that you don't even have the option. And I feel like that was kind of a bit of a misstep, and it would have been, a good additional functionality if I didn't have to use the amp and DAC that's built into this, and I could use my own. So again, like I said in the beginning, if this fits your usability, like if you don't have a DAC amp and you have USB-C out of your computer or your phone, and that's all you need and want, this is gonna be great. I mean, it's literally a win-win for you. But if you are looking for a more standard delivery via 3.5 millimeter into this, you unfortunately can't do it. And it is a little bit of a downside. So while this is plugged in, out of a power outlet, it should take about 3 hours to fully charge, and the battery should last about 12 hours. And I think that's probably pretty honest. Throughout my testing, this thing never died. And it does give you a little bit of a warning light when it is getting low. Got low a couple times in my testing, but never died on me. Now, because the DAC and the amplification is all built in here anyways, I'm not sure how important this is, but it's no longer a 25 ohm headphone, it's a 35 ohm headphone, and it has a sensitivity level of about 103 decibels per milliwatt. So the Bluetooth functionality is pretty good. The pairing was easy. It was almost as flawless as any other Bluetooth device that I've used with either my phone or my computer. There was one little mishap that I did have over a couple weeks of testing this, and it was with the computer, when I had it linked Bluetooth to the computer. The sound, it was weird. I was playing it, it sounded regular, and then stopped playing the song, and then I played something different. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it became extraordinarily distorted, like really bad artifacting, really blocky sound. And I had to actually reset the device, repair it, and that seemed to fix the issue. And that whole process took about a minute to fix. It never happened again, but it did happen that one time. So I'm not sure if that was a result of the computer or if that was a result of the actual headphone. Thought it was worth mentioning, but I don't necessarily think it's worth worrying about. Now, I know a few of you are thinking, well, if there's a microphone and it's Bluetooth and you have Bluetooth on your computer, is this a good gaming headphone? It's fine if you're not playing competitively at all. Like if you don't need the accuracy of speed because there is a bit of a delay, if you don't need that, if you're just communicating with friends, for example, then that's perfectly fine. I don't think the delay was there on the USB-C mode. So if you plug this in via USB-C, I don't think there's gonna be a delay, but if you are using it with Bluetooth, there is that kind of standard Bluetooth delay. So it doesn't really make the best competitive gaming headphone. So sound. And this is really the big question I had going into this review. I thought the Bluetooth was gonna work just fine. What I was mainly concerned about was the power, whether or not this had enough power to power the drivers, which are, for a planar, pretty efficient to begin with. But I also had questions of like, all right, if we're talking sound quality for $1,000, they have to compete, right? So the big question is, do they sound like an Ananda? And the short answer is yes. They sound like 95% of the Ananda. It doesn't quite have that level of refinement, and I'm not sure if this is due to Bluetooth or if this is due to the actual amp and DAC that's in here. But it doesn't quite have it, but it's very, very close. And if you have heard the Ananda and if you like what the Ananda offers, again, see my review down below, and you need Bluetooth, this is gonna be a fantastic option for some of you, mobile hi-fi users. The only thing that I really want to make you aware of is that sound, because it's an open back, it's going to play outwards a lot and playing inwards. In fact, I'll show you an example here. I'll play a song. Turned up about 3/4. So sound leak is a factor. Okay, so actual sound quality. If you haven't watched the Ananda review and you're not going to, what's the basic principles of the sound quality here? Bass level is okay. It doesn't quite have the extremely thick and solid bass impact that some other planars have. It's more on the cleaner end. It's more got that tight, sort of refined feeling rather than that kind of wall of sound that some users love, but others don't. It's very mid-range and treble forward. So you're gonna get really crisp vocals, you're gonna get really amazing string performance, you're gonna get those finite cracks in different string instruments, you're gonna get all that information. And if you really like either orchestral or vocal-based music, or things with a lot of kind of, really finite, crispy sounds happening, this is gonna be an awesome headphone. And the Ananda was an awesome headphone for that as well. Now, when you get into the segments of rock, I don't think there's like enough low end to justify this for a rock only listener. I think you'd want something with a little bit more kick, especially if you're listening to classical rock that's pretty dry in the bass response to begin with. This is not really going to help your case there. Everything from like Roger Waters to more modern music like Billie Eilish, anything that has a decent level of refinement to the actual sound, this is going to display really well in a really pleasing manner. And it's definitely going to give you a very crispy, fast delivery, even for a Bluetooth headphone. Well, actually, especially for a Bluetooth headphone. So the Ananda Bluetooth, that's about what you get with it. It's got some flaws. It's got some kind of oversights that make me kind of scratch my head and go, why? But when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, this is still a fantastic sounding Bluetooth headphone. Like, it's really, really good. It's not perfect. It's not going to be a bass monster. I would look at other Bluetooth headphones if you're more into bass response. But if you're into that clean, crispy, sound signature, this thing is actually great. But it's absolutely a niche product. And I think most people are not going to be interested in what this offers. I think it's going to take the right person with the right circumstances to be like, yeah, that's what I want. And if that's what you want, this is what you got. So that'll about wrap it up. Thank you very much for watching. Leave a comment if you're interested in asking any questions about this. If I missed anything, I apologize, but definitely leave it in the comments and either I or somebody from the community will help you out. Thanks a lot for watching. My name is Josh, signing off.